You are listening to the Joyce Aldrich Show from Toronto, Canada, Arts and Entertainment Edition.
Riding in the van with Pop takes about everything you've got. White knuckles hold you down into your chair. He floors the gas, the world flies past, sucking in half a gasp, a dust cloud, and your ghost left far behind. Riding in the van with Pop takes about everything you've got, as he grinds the gearbox right through every gear. He finds the gear foot to the floor, eggs in the back, and white with fear as you count the odds of jumping out the door. Flying in the van with Pop takes about everything you've got, as he launches you down that country road. Up ahead you see a room, terrified it flashes through. Pop brakes, but only once it's gone. Surviving in the van with Pop takes about everything you've got. It'll shave a decade right out of your life. You get to town, God's mercy found. You're through the door, you stumble down, back into the earth's so sweet embrace.
Wow, that is Market Day, and that is a song from my guest Owen Smith's debut EP. I can hardly wait to see what he does. My gosh. And his EP is called The Snowies, but that was Market Day. And he is from regional Australia. He's a singer-songwriter, and he's got a love for the bush and a passion for crafting distinctively Australian experiences into his song. You're going to hear some wonderful storytelling. It's playful, it's driving, it's rockabilly, it's kind of folk too. But what he's been, his music has been described as really having perfected the sound of true Aussie country. And it is so amazing to be sitting here in Toronto with Owen Smith, sitting in Australia. I say Australia. I'm not only going to do that once, and I promise not to do the accent again, Owen. That would be just terrible. But I have to say good day to you. And it's 8 o'clock in the morning your time, and tomorrow, Wednesday, and it is 4 o'clock here in Toronto on Tuesday in the afternoon. So we are across the international date line. It's rather etheric. Oh. It's awesome.
G'day, Joyce. Thanks for having me on.
So great to have you on. That is such a great song that we started off with, Market Day, from your debut EP. Oh my gosh, The Snowies. And we're going to be playing quite a few of those tunes because your storytelling is amazing. And you kind of said to me, awesome. I don't know if this is a little dark. You sent me, Auburn Sun. You said, I don't know if this is going to be okay for your show. And I thought, my goodness, writing about what you know is the most important thing of all.
And that particular song, it was actually the one that brought me back to the songwriting. So
oh, did it?
I tried my hand at songwriting many moons ago, and then I never really resonated with what I was writing. I was kind of writing because I had to write something. And it was only a couple of years ago, during COVID, I was going through some quite difficult stuff. And then the bushfires came through Australia, and it was just kind of like the entire east coast of Australia was on fire.
Oh my.
And that started bringing back flashbacks to me of my childhood, growing up when we had to prepare the property for impact. And so that smell of the smoke, the haze in the air, it was so thick. And so I sat down, I just started writing to get all of that out. And suddenly I started resonating with my music in a way that I'd never done before. And I think it was partially because I started grabbing those memories and those moments that just really resonated with me, and just tried to put them on paper. And that was a real change for me, a real shift in my songwriting. And suddenly I went, hang on, I feel like this deserves an audience. And so then I started tapping into different moments
Mm-hmm.
in my background. And so Market Day, that one we had first up, was just like this fun but like wild experience of like jumping in the car with Pop one morning to go down to the markets, and then you're like, holy dooly, is he a driver? And you're just flying down this little country back road going, oh dear, I didn't know what I was getting myself in for.
Well, no, and the imagery is so amazing in that, because I could see it all. It was like a movie. It was cinematic. And you're in regional Australia, which I just want to explain that to people a little bit. There are the big cities, of course, we know about, and
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
along the coast, but then there's regional Australia, which can be anywhere from a very small town to the outskirts of that town. Although you're not in the really, remote area, but you're pretty darn close, are you not?
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
a lot of Australia is actually regional, because like Australia is a huge continent.
Well,
And
it's like, it's Oceania is the entire continent, but Australia is 90% of it, and I understand you can put like over 50 European countries in there and still have room for more.
and then you think about it, and like Australia only has like 7 or 8, or a little bit more, but major cities. And you think about that, like across that huge space of Europe, imagine if you just scattered like 10 cities. Like that's a huge space, and not very many kind of urban centers. And so then we have these regional little hubs. So I'm in one of them called Tamworth, which is kind of the home of country music in Australia. And then there's smaller outliers as well. So I've grown up in kind of these regional areas up in the mountains, in the Snowy Mountains, which is where my EP gets the name from. And then also I was born in Tamworth, which is kind of out more heading inland and towards kind of it starts to get into the hotter parts of the region, because in the center of Australia it's really hot, very dry, kind of like your
It's rather desert-like,
in
isn't
like
it?
yeah, like Nevada is in America. I don't know whether Canada has any.
We
Do you
actually
have
do.
major
We have desert in Alberta, near Drumheller, absolutely, and that's where they found one of the largest caches of dinosaur bones in the world.
Oh wow, that'd be a fun
Yeah, very
exploration.
cool. But you have so much there, and yeah, and you mentioned before the show that it's good that it's 8 o'clock in the morning, because now the sun's not going to be baking you, because it is summer for you in Australia, and here we've got snowing
You've
right
got all the
now.
seasons on the show this morning. Yeah, it was fascinating hearing about you guys that have snow. I'm envious. Like the last couple of days, we've had like 40 degrees, and so we're inside with the aircon pumping out all day, and you just step out the front door, and it just feels like you've walked into it, like a kiln or a oven. Like you just open the door of the oven, and it's just blasting you in the face. It's quite hot. We're heading into peak summer for Australia at the moment.
Right. And people don't understand, because you said all the cities are on the on the coast. So of course, yeah, they can go to the beach, but you can't.
Yeah.
There's
I'm
the
like,
difference.
3 hours away.
That's it. But okay, so let's go back to Auburn Sun, because speaking of the heat and the brush fires and so yeah, that is an incredible song, and it again, it's cinematic. Your storytelling is amazing. I love your music. So
Thank you.
well, we could play it right now, so these people are wondering, well, okay, tell the story. How about we play Auburn Sun right now?
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, Auburn Sun, and this is from Back in the Snowies. Owen Smith's EP is debut EP. Oh my gosh, you're brilliant. So more of the same. Here we go, Auburn Sun.
The sun is burning Auburn as the sky is turning black, and the acrid air we're breathing brings the horror screaming back. The radio is blaring and the siren screams across. The fire's up the gully, a couple mile most. been feeding cattle dust. Now even that is burned and crushed. Land in the family, longer than we know, but it won't make it hush. Embers and lightning from the skies, promised rain betrays us. Dad's been cutting grass since dawn by now, and the kids are running branches away from the house. The December heat is scorching, it's sucking us all dry. The car is packed and ready, there won't be sleep tonight. Exhausted, weary to our bones, but the fire waits for no one to vow it. Flames licking up our hopes, a piece of soul is taken helpless before the power of this land. Mankind cannot contain it. Christmas Day is cancelled, there's no water left to cry. Eerie haze foreboding, you can taste it in your mouth. Haggard fireys returning to the night, and the whole town is gathered at the old showground. Last, all the roads have long been cut. Pray the fire break his holding gasp. Echoed in the children's eyes, our fate hangs on a wind. Change, God, have mercy on our town, and maybe we might make it.
Well, maybe we make it, and the lines you have in there are, the poetry is amazing, and the imagery. A land that God cannot contain is. I'm trying to remember that line, but that's amazing. I keep using the word amazing. I'm going to stop that. Awesome.
What in particular resonated with you for that in that story, Joyce?
What resonated in there? Oh my goodness! Well, it was the whole that. Thank you for asking. No, I'm glad you asked, because I could feel the heat. I could feel the exhaustion and the family getting ready, and the kids running the branches away from the house and cutting the grass so that it won't catch on fire. I could feel the heat. I could feel the searing and the, taking your breath away, your lungs filling up with hot air. I could just feel it all. It was like I was standing there. That's what resonated for me so amazingly, because there's that word again, but I could feel like I was standing there and looking at this red hot sky, and thinking that, and the exhaust, and the car's ready. It's all packed. It's ready to go. And it's like, will you ever see your home again? Will you survive? Will you get out of it alive? Because it's so overpowering. And just all of that, I really felt like I was right there, and that's why I by the way, that's why I do audio, because I love theater of the mind, and you are a tremendous writer, and you
Thank you.
invoke that the theater of the mind's there, you know.
And it sounds like you have a very visual imagination. Like
Oh,
you
I've got an
describing it back to
imagination,
me.
all right.
That's exactly what's going through my head as I was putting it to paper. So it sounds like, and like that. That's really encouraging for me as a songwriter, is hearing that those images are being able to be painted in vivid colors for you, because that at the end of the day, that's what I wanted to convey. That's what I wanted to bring across. So if it's achieving that, that for me is magnificent.
Oh, it
And
got seared on my soul, to be honest. I say seared. No, really. It's like, you know, it's just awful
Mm.
and great at the same time.
And it was one of those songs. It was when I was writing it, and it was right in the thick of the fires. My parents' property was on the edge of one of the ones that started early that season, and the fires were so intense. I'd look at the fire maps down New South Wales, and it was kind of like the entire country was on blaze. Imagine if
Yeah.
the entirety of Canada just had fire across it. Like that was the feeling on the
Yeah.
map. And I don't know if you guys um,
We
saw the news footage around it, because like there was this pillar of smoke. Effectively, it went all the way around the world. That was how much smoke was generated from these fires. And so you could just see on the map this giant billow of smoke going across the ocean, heading all the way around and wrapping around by the end of that season. And so you just got these really vivid experiential moments when I'd step out of a train and you'd just be like, the smoke would be 1 meter from you and you just couldn't see past it. And when you go into the cities, it was the same. It was almost like this dystopian universe that you were stepping into. It was so palpable.
Well, and Australia is, well, the history of Australia. It's got to be the most ancient place that I can think of on the planet. I mean, here in Canada, we have the Laurentian Mountains, which is the most ancient, mountain range in the world. Did you know that? Yeah, it's a volcanic range.
No, I
But
didn't know. That's amazing.
yes, we do. But when I think about, like, you talk dystopian, you talk about ancient and raw and real, I think of Australia, and of course, the reason you're there is because it started as a penal colony. I want to ask. I know it sounds terrible. Do your family go back to those days? Do you trace yourself right back, or no? Where did family?
I know I find within every family there's generally one person who the family history stuff becomes very it becomes their thing. And so for me in my family, that's one of my aunts has a real passion for that, and so she's written a whole bunch of books tracing back our family, some of the history we have around kind of the Canberra region, which is the capital in Australia,
Yes.
and just across the border, and trace that back. But I haven't, to be honest, I haven't dug into my family history too much. I know my mother's side, they came across from UK a couple of generations ago.
Right.
I think I know my pop fought in the war. He was a radio mechanic, and then I'm not quite sure. I think his line went back quite a few generations. So I'm not sure how we actually. I do recall my aunt mentioning something about us coming down on one of the ships. I don't quite know the full story off the top of my head, but yeah, certainly our family has kind of migrated in. But of course, we still have the kind of traditional custodians of Australia. So I'm down in Kamilaroi country around Tamworth, and so there's still that ancient history of the people. So even
Oh
though
yeah.
you had the settlers come across from UK, you've got this blend of this ancient
Yeah.
culture with so much. Like I've got a beautiful piece of art that came out of the Northern Territory by a Indigenous artist up there, and like some of the art that comes out of Australia, some of the creativity, it's so amazing to be able to walk alongside some of these fantastic artists. We've got quite a few in the country space who are really making some fantastic music and art at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I heard a little bit of I think a little didgeridoo maybe in the first song. I don't know if I heard that. Or no, maybe it was a harp. A mouth harp. It was a mouth harp, maybe. But no, but I hear you. And when I think of Australia, of course they say, our mitochondria goes back to Africa. But I have to ask myself, Australia is so different from anywhere in the world. And somebody said, well, it's so isolated. And I said, well, yeah, that's why they made it a penal colony, number one. Yes, we'll take them around the other side of the world, plant them here, and let's see what they do.
It is amazing how these different cultures, like of Australia, kind of formed because in terms of like modern Australia came about in the structure it is because of the UK kind of exporting their convicts, and then you've got America was kind of the escapees from a lot of kind of persecution and a lot of those colonies set up on the basis of that. And it's interesting just comparing cultures on the basis of some.
I was going to say the temerity, the way to be able to have that steel inside of you to be able to survive. And it would take, and I'm sure DNA wise, you guys are strong. No, seriously, because you have
like
to
our
adapt.
Survival in modern Australia often is like, how far are we from the local McDonald's? But yes, that still goes down into our DNA. So even though I'm a little bit, and partially our humour is related to that as well, is like we don't take ourselves too seriously. It's always amusing when I see like the differences in culture between like American kind of approaches to how you talk about like your achievements, and then Australian. We tend to have this thing called tall poppy syndrome, which is we don't let people get too big for their boots. So we'll just kind of chop you down a bit if you start talking yourself up too big. Whereas the American side of things, and there was this guy, they brought in this young teenager from America at a conference I was at. He was a whiz kid, wonderful, brilliant kid.
Right.
But he hadn't picked up on the cultural difference. So he got up and he was talking about, I've done this and I've done this and I've achieved that.
They said,
everybody
sit
in the
down.
audience at this point is going, calm down, kid.
So I can't say that you have had you've been nominated for the CCMA New Songwriter of the Year and ASA Australian Song of the Year in 2023. I can't say that, can I? I can say it. I can say it. I can say it.
It's just this idea of not blowing your own trumpet. It's always interesting. Like when I write a release or something, I really have to distance myself from the task.
Yes.
Because you're always kind of self-truncating a little bit when you have a conversation. So it's been having to learn how to be persuasive on paper and kind of I'm going to write it as if I'm a publicist. How do I accurately describe myself in a way that doesn't sound pompous, but at the same time does articulate those things? It's an interesting balancing. I don't know what it's like in Canada. Like, what differences do you find with that kind of mentality?
I like the way you turned it back. It's very no. It's interesting because we're in between the Americans and the British in our way, because we're like you. We're part of the Commonwealth, and we are far more self-effacing than they are in the States as well. We don't go on about ourselves that much, really. It's we say sorry a lot. I don't know if you heard that about Canada, and we always put A at the end, like how you doing, eh? That kind of thing. We always say A and I'm sorry, and there's nothing to be sorry about, but we're always sorry. So I'm just saying, we're not exactly. Yes, we've got our people who have a lot to say about themselves. I won't go into anything political right now, but it's like. Sir Locks and Socks. But anyway, no, seriously though, I think we're kind of in between Britain and because the British, they don't really take themselves that seriously either in some ways, and I think that's where that comes into Australia. But we've got a little bit of the United States, licking at our heels and that kind of thing. So we're in betwixt and in between. We are. There you go.
Yeah, and in betwixt. That's a great word.
In betwixt and in between. Yeah, that's old-fashioned talk. I want to thank your father, by the way. The Australians and the Canadians in the Second World War, and the Australians.
My grandfather. Yeah.
Your grandfather. Yeah, amazing. Again, I don't know why I'm using that word. You get a word in your vocabulary that just keeps coming out, but valor and honor and you couldn't ask for better than the Australians fighting in the Second World War. They just, well, there are no words to really describe it, but certainly way up there. And the Canadians as well, the Canadians and the Australians. Yep. Oh yeah. Anyway,
it's certainly a piece of our kind of heart and core and national pride, certainly within Australia. And it's one of those things, like it was one of those things that really united us together as a people in the midst of what was immensely difficult times. And it's interesting.
Well, look where your position
now.
during the Second World War, right there in Oceania. But the Polynesia, you've got Japan's not too far.
Yeah.
China,
and kind of sending people to the other side of the world to fight different wars and like. And we didn't have like the modern naval, the modern air force. So you would have been spending months on a rickety ship to wow.
Yeah, a lot of grit. Lot of grit. I'd say that's a big thing about Australia. When I think about it, I think of grit. So let's play another song.
Yes, let's do that. Let's do this.
There's a house on the river bend. There's Back in the Snowies, of course. We can play that one. Then there's that Old Hills Hoist. You've had a lot of airplay with that, and Wild Wild Weather. So which one would you like to play next? We got time. You got time?
Let's inject some energy. Maybe we go some Wild Wild Weather.
I think so. Okay. Speaking of all of that we just were talking about, you want to give a little bit of a backstory to Wild Wild Weather?
Oh, yeah. So this is a bit of a toe tapper, and it's where you'll feel a little bit of that rockabilly energy come in. I had some friends write a breakup song to the year 2020. COVID had come, and then everything just seemed to be shutting down, and there was fires and there was floods, and so they were just like, well, they wrote this breakup song. It's over 2020. We don't want to see you anymore. Get out. We're moving on. And I sat down at a cafe after I'd heard that song, and I'm like, there's almost a different angle as well, because within Australia, we get hit by a lot of these natural disasters, and we then come back and we rebuild, and we love the land, and then another natural disaster comes through, and then and so it's almost like this bad love song going on. And so I was like, how do I take a fun angle on that? And so then I sat down and wrote Wild Wild Weather, just reflecting on like that bad love kind of experience that we have with our land, and so casting that in that kind of relational sense.
Oh, well, that's fabulous. I will. So this is Wild Wild Weather from the new debut EP, Back in the Snowies. And I'm going to play that one too, definitely. And here we go with Wild Wild Weather.
Blew into my life like a hurricane, blind to my knees, sheets of rain. Like a drowned cat, clung to a tree, praying for rain, praying to be free. You got me hemmed up in the eye of the storm, all spun up but still craving for more. Trying to get out, trying to get better, but you're flooding me in. Now it's wild, wild weather. It's wild, wild, wild weather. You're bringing us wild, 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 wild weather. I like a face full of secondhand smoke. You're not mine, and now I'm starting to choke. My clear skies, you're pulling me down. Now you're on fire to burn the whole damn town. You got me backburned to cut you off at the pass, but you burn too hot, fire storms too fast. Try to cool my head, take the part of December, but you're burning me up. Now it's wild, wild weather. It's wild, wild, wild weather. You're bringing us wild, 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 wild weather. Now it's a clear day and not a cloud in the sky. My high hose hammer hard out to dry. When the wind kicks at the edge of the down, where the fan's spinning around, round, round, you come boots in. Take my dawn on the floor to my life fall. If I can take much more, shooting up flares, I'm ducking for cover. I'm telling you now, we're in for wild, wild weather. It's wild, wild, wild weather. You're bringing us wild, 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 wild weather. You're bringing us wild. Hey, you're bringing us wild. Oh, wild weather. Oh, wild weather. Hey, wild weather. Oh, wild weather.
Wild, wild weather, wild, wild song. Owen Smith back in the Snowies.
I don't know about you, but every time I hear that song, like it just really kicks my energy up a level, and that was one of the things I wanted to do with that song. And so, like in the EP, the Snowies, it needed to. I wanted it to have light and shade. It was a little bit about putting a bow around my childhood experiences growing up on the land, and how do I capture those for people. And so I wanted that high energy in jazz because there's so much fun, and then there's kind of humorous tracks in there, and so there's like the kind of comedy of the situational humor of just day-to-day life, but then there's also shade of like dealing with the natural disasters and some of the struggles that come up with the land. And so trying to tie all of those together, that was really what I was trying to get through in the EP. So how did you find that? Did that inject a little bit of energy
Oh,
into your day?
I was bopping, and I was thinking, yeah, absolutely. I love that's great music. That's fun. You know, people need to have fun, and not to take themselves so seriously, because my goodness, you can't sing anything anymore. I think I might just move to Australia so I can say what the heck I want. You know, have a little bit more license. You know, but let's talk about your producer here. You know,
Oh yeah, Simon
Simon
Johnson.
Johnson.
Amazing.
Yeah, because he you know, they put your dream.
Oh
They
yeah.
help you build that, you know, that beautiful dream that you have. You know.
And Simon was so pivotal. I don't have a music background, so there's
No.
no music dynasty behind putting all of this together. I had no connections into the industry.
Oh, that,
And
yeah.
so when I started songwriting, it was like, well, okay, how do I get an audience for this? So I started going to open mics, started going to talent comps, which is where I just happened to bump into Simon. Simon was coordinate. He was the band lead for the backing band at a talent comp that I was in.
Oh,
And I watched him, how he was organizing the team, how he was organizing the composition, and then it was such a phenomenal backing band. I went, this guy knows what he's doing. And
mm,
I was like, Simon, I want you to produce the EP. And it was absolutely the right idea. He brought in all of the musicians you hear on that band. Like he brought in like top grade talent. So you've got Shane Nicholson on the guitars, who just has a dozen awards to his name. You've got Liam Kennedy Clark. He's just recently won a bunch of golden guitars this year.
oh,
Like I wouldn't have known him until that talent comp. But
mm,
here, Simon Johnson is bringing in these fantastic artists to help bring that energy and the color and the shade. And so for me, like initially, when I was writing, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll kind of figure out how to produce it myself. And I was chatting with a mentor and David Carter, and he was like,
mm,
no, 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 no,
yeah.
no, no.
You
You
need
kind of only get
distance.
one chance to break,
Yeah,
or one or two chances to break through in the
yeah.
industry. You really want to make sure you nail that production. And so I'm glad I heeded that advice and went and had that work with Simon Johnson, because and working with a producer, you've got to be able to find somebody who works with you and is able to adapt to your energy
Yes,
and is
and
able to realize your vision. And so Simon was so
mm,
patient. He'd mix things, and most of them would come. I'm like, that's great. And then were a couple of tracks where I was like, ooh, that's not quite right. Okay, we need to push this a little bit further. So like back in the Snowies, I know I went backwards with him quite a few times to get, for example, going into the last chorus, like I really needed it to build up quite a bit and get that kind of energy going to get into that last chorus. And so it took quite some doing to then go, okay, well, that's not working. Okay, let's add a little bit more lead guitar in there. How do we get that bump? And then to get that finished product, and you go, yes, that's it. Okay,
Yeah.
we've got it now. And he was so patient through that process. So yeah, Simon Johnson was so much part of the Snowies EP and putting that together and putting that energy together.
That's so important. I have a producer like that, Chris Burkett, who produced Sinead O'Connor's Nothing Compares to You and The Pogues and Copperhead Road and all that kind of stuff, and he sits there and just like Simon, he listens to the artist and what they want, because when you're writing a song, you have it all in your head, but getting it down, so it sounds like that. And even more so because they feel and see things that you don't, that it's almost like they read your mind, a really good producer. So why don't we play?
And I think you're going into that. Sorry to jump in. I think any artist listening on, you want to have, when you go to produce, a really clear picture of how you want the tone and the feel and the finish to be, and you need to know what things you want to fight for, because sometimes you'll send a track off to a producer and they'll come back and it just won't be your style or it won't be your vibe, and you need to be able to make that call about, actually no, that's not going the right way, and you want a producer who will actually be able to listen to that and have enough flexibility in their approach to actually be able to draw it out. So some producers are very specific to a genre, and so they'll produce a very specific sound, in which case those producers, you want to make sure that that's actually the sound you want, because if it's not, it won't fit with your song. So having a really clear vision, and on the one hand being able to be firm and go, no, this is not it, and then work through, articulate where it needs to go, but on the other hand having the flexibility to be taken in different ways, because Simon would get Shane Nicholson to put down the guitars, and you're listening to it going, ooh, and then I often leave like a weekend after hearing something, because I'm like, that was not what I expected.
No.
But is that a bad thing or is that a good thing? And then you come back after the weekend and you have another listen and you're like, actually, yes, that's amazing. But your initial reaction is like, whoa, hang on, where did that come from? But then it's like, wow, okay, that's made the track. And so having that ability to be flexible and allow that really good producer to direct you, whilst also knowing what you can't compromise on in that kind of tone, feel, space, like that's really important.
Oh, I agree. Everything that Chris ever sent back to me, I've said, yes. Oh my gosh, how'd you know? It's like, it's a synergy. And I really believe that you meeting Simon that time, that the first time, that's kismet. That's complete, it was meant to be. And more great music. Let's play Back in the Snowies.
Yes,
Let's do that. And Back in the Snowies, that's your love of the land, isn't it, really?
It is a love story to the land. I was writing it, and for me, the focus is on that experience of just going back to that really kind of sentimental kind of picture of the land that I grew up. So we used to head up into the mountains, and because we were living near the Snow Mountains, and one year we stayed up in Cabramatta, which is the highest town in Australia, around my birthday, and we spent a month in the snow, and those images have just ingrained themselves in my mind. And so when I was living in Sydney, I was just feeling the stress of the city and the bustle, and then I had to travel down to the Snow Mountains, and I got out on the high, and you could just feel this load come off, and all of the busyness of the big city just disappear. And that was the feeling I wanted to capture in this song, is just about getting back out, getting onto the highway, getting your way back home, and being able to just collapse in that wonderful house setting. And in Back in the Snows, it's sort of that snow setting.
And it's not... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you first.
No, I was just going to say, when we think of Australia, think of, of course, the big cities, but also we think of, Crocodile Dundee, No, let's face it, so the desert stuff. But very rarely do I think personally of the Snowy Mountains. I had no,
And we only have a
you know?
couple of them. So, like in terms of Australian experience, like the snow is isolated to very specific parts of Australia. And so to grow up in those kind of highlands and around the Snowy Mountains is a privilege. But like a lot of people in Sydney will drive like 4 hours down the highway to get to the Snowies during the ski season. And so there is a lot of experience of that kind of thing, but you have to be in specific parts of Australia to be able to get to that. So it's not the most comprehensive image in Australia.
No, it's not.
But it's part of, like, our land is so big that it does have that kind
Well,
of breadth,
exactly.
all the different seasons and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So when is the ski season? What month is that?
Well,
is
that's
that?
mid-year. So the opposite of your seasons,
Yeah.
of course, like you're going into your snow season
right,
now.
you're
We're
going into your summer.
blazing heat. And so the opposite is the case. So we traveled up to the Snowies in August is the late season. And so we spent August up in the snow when I was a kid. Those seasons are getting shorter at the moment, unfortunately. So it's been quite difficult to get good ski seasons around here because we don't have whopping huge mountains in comparison to some of the big mountain ranges around the world. So that means we're more susceptible. And so a lot of our ski resorts have been hit quite hard by climate change and the heat change and the temperatures.
Must be
but
very
we still
hard.
get, during mid-year, I'll go down and get some skiing in, and it's just beautiful country.
And you went during your birthday. So when's your birthday?
In August.
When?
26th of August.
Oh, 26th. I was just thinking, my son is August 1st. I was just thinking, I'm July 27th. So I thought maybe, yes, wonderful. Well, you're a Virgo, so you're in the details there. That's it. So let's play Back in the Snowies, and we'll go into this beautiful, beautiful imagery again. Gorgeous, beautiful storytelling.
Sunset over Sydney, freedom on my mind. I'll pack my bags, hit the road tonight. The highway lights are blinding, but you know I just don't mind. 'Cause every day brings me that closer home, till I'm back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Around a roaring fire with you. Now the wind's howling through the village as the storm front's setting in. It's the last we'll see of that sky beneath, but who cares? You're mine again. We've got that roaring fire crackling in that big old stone hearth. Got everything we need right here. Come on and let the winter start. Now I'm back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Around a roaring fire with you. Back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Around a roaring fire with you. For too long I've been chained. This concrete jungle, it wears away. The hapless crowds, the empty looks, they drive my heart away. Till every night I dream of the snow gums and the mountain streams. Down the engine softly purring, gonna drive my night away. Till I'm back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Around a roaring fire with you. The snowy river's calling me as the Monero stretches out. I'm longing for that crisp air on my face. Now I'm back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Around a boring fire with you. Back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Back in the Snowies. Round a roaring fire with you.
Back in the Snowies. Let me tell you what I was feeling during that whole thing and throughout your music, Owen. Let me just share this with you. I can feel the whole, I can feel, how can I put it? I can feel the size of Australia. I can feel the emptiness of Australia. It's like there's so much space between the instruments in the production. I can't explain it because they're so beautifully separated out. That's just my you know, my impression. And your voice, not because you have an accent, the Australian accent, but there's a loneliness in this, but there's also it's like all the way the instrumentation is done, the way you sing it, it really is Aussie country. You have nailed it. I can't. But does that make sense to you? I have vision when I see, you know, I can see you driving from Sydney back into the Snowies and just going across the terrain, you know, and just the way it is. I don't know how empty it is. How did you said, you know, the whole center of Australia? Well, you know, like you said, if Europe only had a few cities in it.
Yeah, yeah. But it's this juxtaposition, like there's the loneliness of the landscape, but actually also there's this connection with the landscape. It's so
Yes, it's a
beautiful,
connection.
it's
Yeah,
so majestic that it resonates with you. And so for me, like
exactly.
you've got this connection going on, and then you've got the connection with the people around you in that land. And so for me, and I'm very spatial. Like my memory works on spaces,
Yeah.
and kind of very vivid pictures of those spaces.
Yes.
And so for me, the land is connection. It is home. And so even though traveling and you've got this feeling of loneliness, the irony in the song is like the loneliness is in the city, where you're kind of disconnected from that land and disconnected from, even though there's lots of people, you kind of find yourself disconnected. And then to go back to what seems like an isolated space, but actually that's home. That's exactly where you feel comfort, and that warmth, even in the midst of blizzards and all of that
Yeah.
going on. And it's like that juxtaposition is a marvelous thing.
Well, it's very spiritual, and it's what the indigenous peoples of, you know, of Australia. I mean, I would say they maybe they hold the secrets of the universe. I don't know, because of that emptiness, because there's so much space, and a place where there are extremes. I don't know. It's just
And there's a magnificent thing here, and I've been having a think about this because I also am really interested in how the human brain works and how my brain works and how we learn and memorize and think about things. And one of the things that a lot of our discoveries are kind of often going back to things that we kind of knew but lost as we modernized things and as we didn't kind of listen to traditional custodians of the land. So, for example, one of the things is I have a very spatial memory, as I was mentioning.
yes.
But when you start thinking about how do you memorize things, well, the indigenous people would memorize things by associating land with stories, with song,
Yeah.
and weave those together. And that becomes your memory. And then as you're walking the land, you actually have the kind of a collection, a library outlaid before you, because the stories and the songs actually play out through what you're experiencing tangibly. Whereas as we've kind of distanced ourselves from the land and kind of surround ourselves with nice big modern buildings, we get a lot of that disconnection because we don't have these landmarks as much to attach our memories and thinking to and be able to weave that together.
Absolutely. Well, Canada, we're similar in a way to Australia because we have most of our habitation is along the 49th parallel. I mean, our cities. We have of course we've got Halifax, we've got Montreal, we have Toronto, Ottawa, we have Winnipeg, and Regina and Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. Those are the main cities. I just went across Canada.
Wow.
And north of us, tundra and ice and snow, melting, of course. but you know what I'm saying? We have this gigantic country, and it's mostly empty. It's filled with forests and lakes and and mining.
But is that empty? Is that
it's not,
empty?
no, it's not. No,
this
it's
is
not.
the
It's totally.
question.
Yeah, it's not empty. It's not empty. It's empty of what we call modern civilization, and it's absolutely glorious. We are rich. We are so rich here, and we don't realize how rich we are. Same with you in Australia.
Yeah.
The wealth. It gives space. We need space for our spirituality. We get so hemmed in, like you said, in the city, and then you feel lonely, and then you feel hemmed in and stressed. Get me out of here.
And this was one of the real big mistakes of British colonialism was the thought that, we landed on this country, this continent, and there's nothing here. Well, there's plenty there. It's just
Yeah.
it didn't meet what they expected things to look like within their little system.
Exactly.
And so difference is not wrong. Difference is something beautiful, and being able to have that kind of natural order, but in and the Aboriginal people took amazing care of the land prior to settlement. We've actually lost things as we've tried to kind of push certain patterns onto other countries and other
Yes.
lands that just didn't fit. It's sad that
Yes.
we've lost so much, and I do enjoy being able to get alongside people who do still have that connection to country and culture, and be able to learn from them because there's so much wealth of information and knowledge and wisdom in what they carry with them.
Oh, I completely agree. And yeah, and your album here, back in the Snowies is certainly, or Snowies. It's called Snowies, right? Snowies EP.
The Snowies,
the,
yes,
the,
yes.
Snow, the Snowies, yes, the Snowies. Yeah, it's where can they get this? Where can people buy this album?
So it's available through my website. So if you head to owensmithguitar.com, it's all up there on my store there. You can purchase a copy. I'll sign it and send it out to you. I've got a bunch of things planned for the next 12 months. At the moment, it's been a huge year with the launch of the EP and a whole bunch of other things. I was at the Country Music Academy of Australia in January, and then various festivals, and then built up to that EP launch. So if they do want to get a copy of it, head to my website. That's also a place where you can find all my socials. You can subscribe to my newsletter. I've got a bunch of stuff planned for next year. I'm heading over to the Tamworth Country Music Festival in January. I've got a number of really exciting shows, really showcasing that storytelling element. And then I've got a number of releases planned for next year. You mentioned Didge. There's a didgeridoo potentially on one of those tracks. Well, I actually have a track dropping in March, which I think you'll love around that, Joyce, which looks at like the deserts in Australia and then how they came to life during the rains that came through. But on the other hand, it kind of cut off all of those little townships from civilization. The food couldn't come in. So living on this edge in those. So there's a song coming out about that. And then there's a comedy song I've been putting together with another really well-known Australian songwriter, Matt.
Oh.
like your Beverly Hillbillies, kind of that kind of vibe,
Mm-hmm.
except of the Australian version, which is our bogans. So like your soul to the earth kind of people. What would happen if they came into the money and kind of moved up into the like
Yeah.
upper class suburbs? So that's going to
Black
be a
gold,
really fun one
Texas
to look at.
tea. Yes.
Yeah. So that's going to come out kind of mid-late next year. So I'm currently putting that together with Simon. So some really exciting stuff to come up. Head to my website, owensmithguitar.com. You can subscribe there. You can find all my socials. You can buy a copy of the EP and I'll send it out to you.
Yeah, and if you're in Australia, you're going to be heading to Australia. A lot of people travel there, and I would love to get there at some point. But certainly, take a look. You may be able to head off to one of Owen's shows. So definitely go to the
definitely.
website. Absolutely. So let's. Now you were talking about the whole feel of the country and everything. You've got a couple of. I want to leave with one song. I don't know whether it's A House on the River Band or that old Hills Hoist. Which one would you like to?
Oh,
head
that's
out
a
with?
tough choice.
We
Choosing
could
between
play
my
both
children.
of them.
Let's leave on a light-hearted note. So I got this phone call the other day. Apparently, my nan had managed to get herself with the whole emergency services rocking up to a house to give her a hand doing the laundry, of all things.
Well.
And this story will tell you how she managed to do that. She didn't. No grannies were hurt in the making of this song. She had the time of her life. But yeah, let's play that old Hills Hoist.
I like that one. It's comical and it's beautiful. I love it. It's a great song. And it's one of
and context for anybody who doesn't know what a Hills Hoist is. It's fairly iconic in Australia. It's this clothesline that pivots and has 4 arms on it, and you used to swing on it as kids. So that's our clothesline. I don't know.
we have them here. We totally have them here. Yeah, they look like little windmills, but they've got the pole, but they go. And they got all the lines inside. They're very good. They're very good. So that's a definite image we can relate to.
I always have to check because I have been on calls with people and they're like, "What's the Hills Hoist?" I'm like, "Oh, let me introduce you."
Well, the thing is, though, we call it a clothesline, But the thing is, we call it the Hills Hoist, and that's also before we play this. That's the thing, what you guys say and what we say and the Americans say and the English say, how we're all speaking English, but we all speak it differently. It's all kinds of stuff.
And it's amazing.
It is amazing and it's great. Yeah, there's the amazing.
Thanks for having me on the show this morning, Joyce. It's been a real privilege.
It's been good. But I'm going to play this and then we can say our goodbyes in a moment because I don't want to let go of you yet. Hold on a second. We're having
Okay, I'll speak to you in a sec, Joyce.
Yes, you will after that old Hills Hoist. Okay? All right, here we go.
Well, that old Hills Hoist has seen a thing or two. Cast iron with the garden view and those rascal kids swinging off the poles. But I imagine even it was hit for six the day it heard the emergency blitz and the whole town came running out in droves. Well, you know how it goes. Wrong place, wrong time. Now there was Nan dangling by her own clothesline. Cried out to my brother, "Come and help me down." But my brother, he had a broken leg, and when he saw that her hand was quite firmly wedged, he immediately sent a distress call out to town. Well, first off, the fireys came, and when they couldn't shift it, the ambos began, and pretty soon the coppers were working on it too. The whole darn force in that small backyard, the greatest ruckus the town had ever had, but they didn't expect to be bested by a Hills Hoist. Struth! Now the saga eventually came to a close with a small device not normally for clothes as the jaws of life prized apart those bars. Nan was free without a single bruise, probably headlining the local news, and that old Hills Hoist still without a single scar. Well, that old Hills hills hoist us in a thing or two. Cast iron with a garden view and those rascal kids swinging off the poles. But I imagine even it was hit for six the day it heard the emergency blitz, and the whole town came running out in droves.
That old that old hills hoist. Owen, I got a question to ask you before you leave us. Okay, you live in an isolated area of the world, you do. And thank goodness it's a beautiful place. What kind of advice would you give to this uptight world we're living in right now? Where you can't say this, you can't do that, and if you do, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But what kind of sage advice would you give?
Sage advice. I don't know if I've got much sage advice.
Well, it could be rosemary or thyme. I don't care. Whatever you want.
My mother's name is Rosemary.
Is she
she'll
really?
be happy to get a spruik on this.
Oh, lovely.
I think one of the things that I've been on is quite a journey of self-discovery. And I don't think that they really teach this in schools very well, is the ability to learn, which seems like a strange thing, but I was introduced to lots of content, but I didn't really learn how to learn until after university, which is kind of strange. And the journey I've been on is actually just figuring out how my brain works and how relationships work, and really some of those things that you think are fundamental, but actually you need to do hard thinking about. And so I've just been on a bit of a journey of self-discovery, just figuring out who am I, and then how does that relate to what things I do. So in my 20s, I kind of just did what was in front of me. Whereas in the last couple of years, I've increasingly had to look at things and go, well, actually, there's only so much of me and so much time that God has given me on this planet. And so the question then becomes, what are the things that I should do? Who am I, and how does that actually relate to the things that I do? And so I've just been working through that, trying to figure out what my values are as a person. I've been in some very difficult situations, and then thinking through, well, what does that show me about who I am, what I value, what I ought to value, and therefore structure things around that. Because if you just run through life and you just grab things, it might work out, but often you'll find yourself in situations that aren't aligned with who you are as a person. And so you need to be able to look at a really good opportunity and go, I'm going to turn that down because it's not who I am and it doesn't align with me. And you've got to have a clear enough view of who you are as a person. And so as you're thinking about like these busy cities and everything going on, you can fill your life so much with just stuff.
You can jump on the wrong bandwagon every so often if you're not careful. Yeah. No,
that's my pearl of wisdom. Take it or leave it. Put a bit of a grain of salt with it.
Well, I think that was that not on the Delphic Oracle, was know thyself, right? It's really know thyself, know who you are, and be your authentic self. A lot of people are a lot of posers out there, people who aren't true to themselves, and that's
as you say, like there's a lot of people, and some people just don't realize that they kind of just get stuck. And I don't want you to feel stuck. Like that's a terrible feeling. But there's so much you can do in life. Just knowing who you are as a person and then making decisions on the basis of that. There's so many opportunities around there. Really, thank you for having me on.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure
to chat with you.
Yeah, and you know what? Because you're such a great person, there, Owen. I'm going to play a house on the river bend as we go out, and I thank you so much for being such an incredible guest. And when you have more music, you just get in touch with me and we'll have another one of these talks. Okay? Because life goes on and it goes fast. I'm 69 and I can't believe I'm 69. I mean, I look back and it zooms by. So Make the most
Yeah.
of it. Make every day count. So thank you so much, Owen, for joining us. And you are the Time Lord because you figured out the time math for us. Thank you so much. We
I'm
both.
glad. I was checking it on my phone this morning going, did I get the right time? I don't want to stand Joyce up.
Oh my God! When I saw you there, I went, "Oh, thank goodness." Okay. All right. So take care and hi to your mom and pop and to your nan and all the wonderful people in Australia. We're in Canada and we're with you. Okay.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you
Have a
so
great
much.
one.
So here we are, a house on the river bend. There you go.
One day I'll take my boat, a simple gentleman, and I will stay afloat with only these two hands. I'll pack my old wooden box, a knife, some matches, build a house on the riverbed. Maybe then I'll be free to be with nothing but the sun and the land. I have lived a life that's brought me to my knees. If I stay and do my time, I'll drown in misery. I'll pack my old wooden box, a knife, some matches, build a house on the riverbed. Maybe then I'll be free to be with nothing but the sun and the land. Today I'll take my boat, this simple gentleman, and I will stay afloat with hope and these two hands. I'll pack my old wooden box, a knife, some matches, build a house on the riverbed. Maybe then I'll be free to be with nothing but the sun and the land. And the wild, wild river will welcome me and not treat me as a convict man.
You are listening to the Joyce Aldrich Show from Toronto, Canada, Arts and Entertainment Edition.